Okay, so, bit of a hot take. I think Illumination Entertainment is not as bad as people are making it out to be, and they have about 15 movies in total as of today. This studio is mostly known for making animated movies that captured a wide mass appeal, mostly with younger audiences. But at the same time, they don't really make stuff for the sake of being good. But they do know how to make a lot of money. Like, look at the list of the highest grossing animated movies, and some of them are from Illumination. And considering how long they've been around, I think that's really impressive. So today, I'm going to watch all 15 Illumination movies and see if this studio really is that bad. And stay tuned till the end because I'm going to rank all of them as well once I'm done watching all of these movies. And people have already made ranking videos of this studio before, but hey, now it's my turn to rank this capitalism of a studio. Now take a seat, grab your bananas, because this is probably going to be my longest video to date. Now, let's start with the first movie that started it all, with...
I'm having a bad day. It's about time that I get my way.
So Despicable Me was the first movie that Illumination released, and I still like it to this day. Yeah, I know, what a shock that this movie still manages to hold up after all of these years in my opinion. So the story is about this villain named Gru, voiced by Steve Carell, and he wants to reach his goal to be the best villain in the world by stealing the moon. And by doing so, he adopts 3 orphan girls, and later on in the movie, he seems to grow an emotional attachment to them. And that's one of the main things that carried this movie for me. There are moments in this movie that just works in some way. I like that scene where Gru finally got the moon, but then he sees the girl's recital ticket flying out of his pocket and realizes what he's about to miss out on. I just really like that this movie had moments like these, and considering that this is from Illumination, yeah. I like Vector as a villain. He doesn't really take himself too seriously, but I just like that he's just a goofball in this movie. But also he's just a meme factor, and I think that's pretty funny. And the minions are not bad in this movie. They just serve as a side gag, but I think for the most part, they work for what this movie offers. But the problem with them in future movies is that they overuse the heck out of them. But yeah, for this being their first movie, it's not that bad. And I honestly don't really have a lot of complaints about this movie. It's pretty solid for what it is, it's paced really well, there are moments that are funny, I like Gru's relationship with the girls, and it's overall a pretty fun movie to watch. Anyways, I hope their next movie won't be disappointing. So, Hop was their next movie? Yeah. I'm not gonna waste your time with this one. This movie is just straight up not good, but I also didn't really hate it either. Whoa! Okay, hold up. It's because I watched this movie as a kid, and I remember really liking it, but watching it now, it does not hold up at all. The story is just very poorly set up. At the start, we get this prologue about this main rabbit named Ebi, which I guess is an acronym for Easter Bunny, which is pretty on the nose. And you might think that he wants to take over being the Easter Bunny, but nope. Within the next scene, he's all grown up and he's like, I don't want to be the Easter Bunny anymore. I want to be in a band. Yeah, that's basically his whole arc here, and I was just not satisfied at the slightest. Then we get Tom from the Sonic movies, and this movie did not make me care enough for their relationship. It's just really bland, and I honestly wish I was watching the Sonic movies instead of this movie. The story is boring, the movie is boring, David Hasselhoff makes a random cameo in this movie for some reason, but there's also some scenes that just make me uncomfortable. Like, why is he doing that? Stop!
You don't want to be like this. This is disgusting. This is awful in every way.
Yeah, don't watch this one. I promise you it's not as good as you remember. And thankfully, Illumination have never made another live action movie after this one. I think it's better for them to stick with animation.
Let it grow, like it did so long ago.
So the Lorax was not as bad as I remember it being. Maybe it's because this was a breath of fresh air after watching Hop, and I just wanted to watch something that is animated again. Based on the Dr. Seuss book of the same name, the Lorax is about this kid named Ted, voiced by Zac Efron, who wants to find a real tree because his town is only run by plastic and air. So he meets with this guy called the Onceler, and then he tells the story about how all of the trees went extinct. Which, I don't know if all of this stuff is accurate to the book. I haven't read the book in a long while, but I'm pretty sure that this whole plastic environment setting was not really in the book. But yeah, this movie was not that bad, but it was also not that good either. Plus, they marketed the heck out of this movie back when it came out, and a lot of people like to point out that they literally had a whole car promotion for this movie, even though the movie is about the environment. Yeah, that was kinda weird. And also the fact that this movie was also a musical as well. While they're not really bad in my opinion, but like, they weren't really anything special. Same with the story, it also wasn't really anything special as well. Some of the characters were amusing, I suppose, but at the same time they didn't really bother me that much. The animals in the movie were a little annoying, and they didn't really serve the plot as much. They were just there. I like that Danny DeVito is the voice of the Lorax. I think it brings some personality to the character, and it makes the movie more entertaining for me to watch. And I also like how this movie ends. I think it's wholesome to have one of Dr. Seuss's quote at the end of the movie. But yeah, this movie was not that bad, but I also wouldn't really watch it again, to be honest.
Let it die, let it shrivel up and come on, who's with me?
So I still kinda like Despicable Me too. Yeah, what a shock. But it's not as good as the original in my opinion. But I still somehow managed to like it in some way. Fun fact, this was the first movie that I've ever saw on opening weekend. And I remember sitting in the very front of the theater, so the entire time I was watching the movie like this. Another fun fact is that this was the only Illumination movie to ever get nominated for Best Animated Feature, for some reason. Yeah, I don't think it was that good to even get nominated for that category, because the movie itself is not that good, but for the most part is an enjoyable watch. So the movie is about Gru, followed by this new character named Lucy. They both get assigned to find this dangerous antidote that makes living things turn purple and violent towards people. So both Gru and Lucy spent like half the movie trying to figure out who made the antidote. I guess Gru and Lucy's dynamic was kinda cute, I suppose. There were more minions in this movie and they weren't really that relevant to the story, but some of their moments were kinda funny. Look, I'm probably not the only person who doesn't hate the minions, but I don't mind their existence, but I just hate how overused they were in future movies. Oh, Marshall was an okay villain, but I feel like he didn't really do much, so I'm just kinda whatever on him now. But the ending made me smile, and my dad liked to mimic the song to how the minions were singing for that wedding scene, because they were singing it in their own language. I don't know, I thought it was kinda funny to bring up. But yeah, this movie was not that good, but it's also not that bad either. It's still an enjoyable and fun sequel, and I wouldn't mind watching it again. The Minions is a movie that I won't watch again. Yeah, I don't know. I remember seeing this movie back in the theater when it came out when I was younger, and I remember liking it, but watching it now, it's not that good. This movie is just more Minions, but with a very dull and forgettable story. So this movie is a prequel to the Despicable Me movies about the Minions wanting to find a leader to serve their purpose for existing. Yet, over the years they serve a lot of different bad guys. Wait, does this mean that they served between 1933 and 1945? But yeah, I kinda just didn't feel anything for this movie as a result. I thought the villain was kinda cool, but she wasn't really fleshed out at all for it to be good. She was just whatever. The part where Bob becomes King of England drags on a little too long and it kinda loses focus to the main story for a bit. Yeah, this movie was mostly nothing and it doesn't really do much to justify its existence in my opinion. But this movie still somehow made $1 billion at the box office. Yeah, this is a pretty average kids movie and it could have been worse honestly. I was not looking forward to watching the sequel after Pets if I'm being honest. I remember watching this around when it came out and it didn't really leave much of an impression on me, but after rewatching it again, yeah, I can see why. This movie is basically the first Toy Story movie but done very poorly, with the most uninteresting characters with the most dull and uninteresting story. So the story is about this dog named Max, and then his owner brings a new dog named Duke, and Max just hates him taking the spotlight for attention for the most part. Yeah, like I said, it's basically Toy Story, but with dogs. There's a subplot where this white dog is just trying to find the main dog, and all of it just feels like filler, and I honestly could have cared less. The Kevin Hart bunny was amusing, and he had some funny moments. I kinda like that the two main dogs got high out of sausages together. There's a hawk that's voiced by Albert Brooks, and all I could hear was Marlin from Finding Nemo. All of the side characters were pretty wasted, and they didn't really get to do much as a result. But I'll sort of give it props to how this movie opens. I don't know, I just admire it. But yeah, I really don't have much to say about it. It's really just a below average kids movie with the most boring story that I've ever seen from this studio by far. And I somehow own this movie on Blu-ray. Same with the Minions. Anyways, at least this movie reminds me of what the next movie I'm gonna watch next.
I got faith in you, baby. I got faith in you.
I still surprisingly like Sing. I mean, it's not that good, but I still had some enjoyment out of it. I remember seeing this in the theater around when it came out, but I walked in the theater and missed like the first third of the movie. So after I left the movie, I never thought about it again. But rewatching this now, I did not have a bad time watching it. The story for the most part is simple, but at the same time it's pretty average. The movie is about this koala named Buster Moon who wants to save his theater by hosting a singing competition. Yeah, like I said, the story is pretty average, but at the same time, not all of it was engaging. The second act of the movie is just all of the animals rehearsing for the competition, and there's so many subplots with them, and not all of it had me intrigued the whole way through. But I did like Johnny's side story for a bit, and I do like the voice that Taron Egerton had. I think he did a good job, and I thought his side plot was interesting. The Seth MacFarlane mouse was amusing, and all I could hear is Quagmire from the vocal performance that he's given in this movie. And I do like the final act of the movie. It made me smile. Plus, a lot of the song choices were pretty obvious and a little annoying, but not all of it was that bad for me to hate it. So yeah, I did not have a bad time watching this one. I like it in my opinion, but it's not something that I would rewatch a million times.
You're either with me or don't me. Bring it in.
Despicable Me 3 was a movie for sure. Yeah, I don't know, rewatching it again after all of these years, this one just didn't do it for me. I remember seeing this back when it came out, but when I saw it, I guessed I walked into the wrong auditorium, missing like the first 50 minutes of the movie, but then I saw it again and watched the whole movie this time. That was fun. So the movie is about this villain named Balthazar Brett, who had a popular TV show that was cancelled due to him hitting puberty or something. So he wants to take revenge on Hollywood for the people who cancelled him. So Gru attempts to take this diamond bag that Brett stole, and we get this. Why?
The diamond.
He's pulling his cock out!
With the addition of Gru finding out he has a twin brother, yeah, they're going with that route. This movie had so many subplots and really none of them connected by the end. We get the subplot where the minions quit and go to prison, which doesn't really add anything to the plot. We get this other side plot about Agnes wanting to find a real unicorn, which also didn't add anything to the plot. And Gru's brother Drew is the most wasted character ever in this franchise, and his voice really got on my nerves and I just didn't really feel any connection or dynamic between Gru and Drew. It really wasn't anything special. I like some of the new songs that Pharrell Williams did in this movie. I thought it sounded good. Also, this movie manages to have some good humor in my opinion. I don't know why, but some of the jokes actually made me laugh.
C'est Gru con boobs.
But yeah, this one is not very good. It was mostly a boring filler movie that really added nothing to the Despicable Me movies, and I honestly wish it was better.
I'm okay.
Okay, we got a few more movies left, and hopefully none of them will suck.
I'm the Grinch. Hey, how you doing, you scum? It's a pleasure to meet you. I'm the Grinch.
Okay, this one did not suck as much, but it's still not very good. So The Grinch was another Dr. Seuss adaptation since the Lorax, and I'm kinda struggling to see if I like it or not. I did see this one in the theater when it came out, and from what I remember after walking out of it, it did put me in the Christmas mood for a bit. I mean, we've rarely got any Christmas movies theatrical wise, so it was nice to have this movie, and it reminds me that Christmas is a magical holiday. But yeah, this movie is still not very good. It's not bad, but like, it wasn't really anything special. So The Grinch is about him wanting to steal Christmas because of him being alone and not celebrating Christmas with anyone. Yeah, that's basically the whole baseline of The Grinch if you haven't read the book. But from what I can tell from The Grinch in this one is that this one he's too nice, which sort of defeats the whole purpose of The Grinch as a character. There's a scene where The Grinch found this reindeer, and then later on in the movie he lets the reindeer free to its family that he found. Now, I would think that the Grinch wouldn't do that if he wanted to give this guy his whole redemption arc by the end, but no. This whole movie just feels like a lot of filler stuff that isn't really interesting as a result, and I kinda got bored by the middle chunk. What also really bugs me is that all of the people in the Who village, they all have the same character model, and it's really distracting. They all look like they all have been copy and paste, with little to no change. Like, look at them! You can't tell me that they've all been copy and paste. It's just with different sizes and height. There's also this subplot about Cindy Lou wanting to capture Santa because she wants Santa to help her mom because she sees that her mom is overworked, which feels underdeveloped and unfocused, and I kinda forgot about that subplot. I mean, I guess the only saving aspect is that at least the visuals looks pretty to look at. So yeah, The Grinch for the most part is just an okay movie, and I'll probably watch it again on Christmas with my family if they recommend it. Also, the marketing for this movie is very questionable. Like, what the heck even was this?
I know somebody love me, someone trying to hurt me.
Oh, the sequel to The Secret Life of Pets. It's not good. This movie feels like it had no reason to exist. I know that's a little harsh to say, but let me explain. This doesn't even feel like a movie for the most part. There's like 3 subplots in this movie, and none of them really connected to the story, nor were they interesting. Speaking of story, the story for this movie is honestly the worst I've seen from this studio by far. The quote-unquote main story is about Max wanting to protect his kid from dangerous surroundings. Then there's a subplot about the white dog learning to be a cat to get this toy back from these cats, which feels very out of place. Then there's the other subplot about the Kevin Hart rabbit and this new dog voiced by Tiffany Haddish, about saving this tiger from this evil circus guy who doesn't really do much as a villain, other than just existing for the climax to happen. Also, the tiger that they saved doesn't talk, which was really weird considering that literally all of the other animals talk. Even when one of the background animals do talk, I thought to myself, how come the tiger doesn't talk? I feel like it would have been more impactful if the tiger actually did talk. Then we get the Harrison Ford dog, which really has no character other than helping Max being brave, which I guess that was his whole character arc in this movie, which I didn't really feel anything or cared enough for. I feel like this movie would have worked better if it wasn't a movie. Instead, the story would really fit better as a TV series. Like, you can't tell me that the plot for this movie is made for something for an episode of a TV series. But yeah, this one sucked in my opinion. I really don't have any reason to watch it again.
But I still haven't found what I'm looking for.
I'm so glad that I got to revisit Sing 2. After sitting through 3 unimpressive Illumination movies, I was looking forward to watching this again. I remember when I watched this for the first time and I thought it was gonna be nothing special, but surprisingly, I actually really like it. And after watching it again, yeah, I would say that this is definitely one of the better movies from Illumination in my opinion. It's not great, but I still enjoyed myself throughout most of it. This movie just feels bigger in scale and visually it looks nice. It's one of the best looking Illumination films in my opinion. The story felt like it had something to tell. Not all of it was great, but in most parts it was engaging to me. I like that all of the characters had different directions compared to what they had in the first one. In the first movie, all of the characters had basic character traits, while in this one, they all had pretty distinct character moments, and it fits with the story decently well. I even liked the new characters that were shown in this movie, and none of them really annoyed me, which was surprising. All of the music sequences were also pretty good, especially with the third act of the movie. It was pretty wholesome, I'll admit. It did put a smile on my face. Again, some of the song choices in this movie were still pretty obvious. They played more modern songs, which was a little annoying, but like, I didn't really hate it. Some of the voice acting sounded kinda off for some of it. It feels like some of the actors recorded their lines in a kitchen, which was a little distracting.
We're gonna put this show on whether Crystal likes it or not. But first, we're gonna jump out that window.
But I get it, since this movie came out around the time when we were isolated from our homes. But yeah, I honestly don't really have a lot of complaints with this one. It's a significant improvement over the first one in my opinion. The characters are more enjoyable to watch than in the first one, the song sequences were great, and there were some moments in it that I liked. I say go watch it if you liked the first one enough, and you'll probably be surprised with this one. Unless you already hate these movies, then I don't know what to tell you. So the spin-off movie to the Minions got a sequel. for some reason, titled Minions: The Rise of Gru, and this movie doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. So this prequel tells the story about young Gru wanting to join this group of villains called the Vicious Six, but apparently he's too young to join the team, so he steals this ding, which is an ancient stone which is only powered for Chinese New Year's, but Gru gets kidnapped by this guy named Knuckles, and the minions are on a mission to find Gru. So the reason that this doesn't make sense to me was because it had me question a lot of things. Gru never mentioned in the previous movies that he was a fan of these villain groups, and the fact that the movies never bothered to tease that or bring that up, I kinda don't like that this prequel added a new minion named Otto, which I think he's pretty pointless to add because that just tells me that he isn't gonna be around in the other movies. So he only exists in this one just to get some laugh out of some kids. But other than that, I do kinda like this better than the first Minions movie. I thought some of it was more entertaining and some of the Minions stuff was fun to watch. I would say that the title is kinda misleading because it says The Rise of Gru, but Gru doesn't really do much outside of hanging out with Knuckles, which I didn't really care much for their relationship. The villains were villains, they're not really that interesting and overall just pretty one-noted. I do like some of the callbacks to the other Despicable Me movies. Also like this movie visually, it looks pretty nice to look at. Also, this is the most wacky Illumination movie that I've seen, with a lot of the animation sequences are more cartoonish, which looks nice, but for the most part isn't really my cup of tea. But if you like it, I won't hold anything against you. Yeah, this movie is not that bad, but I also wouldn't really watch it again. Finally, I can talk about this movie again. For like the fourth time. Yeah, this movie had basically resonated with this channel for a bit, and I've already talked about it, so I'm not gonna say much here. But since this is a part of their ranking, I might as well try my best to talk about it a little more. So yeah, the Super Mario Bros. Movie is Illumination's first ever video game adaptation. Now taking a break from making Dr. Seuss adaptations, which, let's be honest, weren't really that faithful. They went ahead and made an actually decently well-made video game movie for everyone to enjoy. Yes, I was hesitant about how this movie was being made before it came out, with the weird choice of cast that they chose for this movie, and also the fact that Illumination was making this, which had a lot of people worried. But now that the movie has been out for a while, I still think it's one of Illumination's better movies, and I think it's one of their well-made ones. From the animation style looking more different from a lot of their other movies, the visuals are really cool to look at, and overall, it's still a fun movie to watch. I don't love everything about it. I think the voice cast is not bad, but overall, it kinda goes on and off for me with the decision they cast for these characters. Like, to me, Chris Pratt as Mario is still whatever. Seth Rogen as Donkey Kong is still amusing. Jack Black as Bowser is still my favorite part of this movie, and the rest are just okay. But what I think what really lacks for me to this day is the story and how it's paced. When I watched this again, this movie felt like 10 minutes went by, and I wish this movie would have had enough time to breathe for some nice character moments with Mario and the people he meets throughout the movie. I wish Luigi was in it more. I kinda don't like the licensed music they use throughout the movie. It feels very out of place for this movie, and I wish they would have just used the original score for this movie, which still sounds really good in my opinion. But yeah, other than that, I still really like it. One, because it's a video game adaptation, and I do have my biases towards that. And two, I just really like how they implicated some of the aspects of the game into this movie. And I think they handled it pretty well, and I can't wait for the sequel to come out in less than a year. Finally, Illumination made another original movie since Sing. Jeez, that was so long ago. Guess they really like making them sequels, huh? So yeah, Migration is basically about these ducks trying to migrate to a better and bigger island to Jamaica. Yeah, the premise is very simple. I saw this movie back when it came out, and I for some reason never thought about it again up until now. This movie is actually pretty solid for the most part. I really like this family of ducks and their dynamic throughout this movie, and none of them were really annoying. And this movie really feels like you had enough time to connect with these characters, considering that this is Illumination's shortest movie ever. Plus, there was also some good humor that manages to make me laugh a bit. Also, the soundtrack of the movie sounds pretty good, and I'm really glad that this is the only Illumination movie that had almost to no licensed music, which they do have a habit of doing with a lot of their other movies, aside from one by the end, but hey, I'll take it. I also like to point out that I like that there's humans in this movie, and they literally have no dialogue, which I think it's nice since I guess they didn't want these humans to overshadow the duck characters, even the main villain who just makes a lot of grunting noises. But yeah, I don't really have a lot of complaints with this one. It's overall just a fun and cute movie that does have some heart added into it. It's definitely one of their better movies that they made as of late. Well, we finally made it to the last movie, and their most recent one, Despicable Me 4. I don't really like it that much. I don't know, for some reason I thought I liked it the first time I watched it, but watching it again, I really just didn't care much about what's happening for most of the runtime. So Gru and his family went into hiding because of this new villain who is a cockroach, which let me say that this villain is really the most uninteresting villain in the entire Despicable Me franchise. He doesn't really do much outside of the ending, but for most of it, he's just a lackluster villain, and the voice that Will Ferrell does I thought was not bad, but it kinda worn me out a bit. Also, the movie doesn't really do much to justify its existence. Most of it is just Gru and his family BSing around in their new town that they're undercover for. Speaking of Gru's family, I guess this movie forgot about the girls are the main core of these movies, and they don't really have any connection with Gru anymore. Aside from Gru having an actual biological kid, which I thought some of it was cute, I'll admit. I don't like this new girl character that stalks Gru. She really is just a one-noted character with some really annoying dialogue.
Ever hear of respecting your elders?
I don't respect boomers.
You shut the fuck up! I hope you die in a fire!
Also, the whole Super Minion stuff was just overall wasted. They don't really do much other than exist just to sell toys. And the way this movie ended made you think that this is the last movie, which this movie did not feel like a good conclusion to this franchise, but I like some of the callbacks that were in this scene. They were nice, I guess. But I also like the opening of the movie with Pharrell Williams' new song playing in the background. I just think it sounds cool. But yeah, I don't know. To me, I think this is the worst Despicable Me movie by far. I don't really like Despicable Me 3 that much, but at least I was somewhat entertained by that one. This one, I was just not amused for most of it, and that's really all I have to say about it. It's just meh. Alright, I've done it. I've watched all of the movies. Now, it's time to rank them all. On my number 15, I got The Secret Life of Pets 2, the most boring movie that Illumination has made. I just don't like it at all. On my number 14, I got Hop. It's really not that good, and I'm glad that Illumination never made another movie like this. On my number 13, I got The Secret Life of Pets. It's basically Toy Story, but with a boring story and boring characters. On my number 12, I got Despicable Me 4. Overall the worst Despicable Me movie in my opinion, but I like the ending at least. On my number 11, I got Despicable Me 3. I like the villain, but still a mostly bland and forgettable movie. On my number 10, I got The Lorax. Not as bad as I remember it being, but the story is still very average. On my number 9, I got The Minions. Most of it was boring, but some of it was entertaining, I guess. On my number 8, I got The Grinch. A cute Christmas movie, but it's from Illumination. On my number 7, I got Minions: The Rise of Gru. There were some fun moments, but the story didn't make sense to me. On my number 6, I got Sing. The music bits were fun, but there was some filler stuff that I didn't really like. On my number 5, I got Despicable Me 2. Some of it was entertaining, and overall it's a fun time. On my number 4, I got Migration. I really like how simple the story is, and I really like the characters a lot. On my number 3, I got the Super Mario Bros. Movie. I still really like it, and it's one of the best looking Illumination films in my opinion. On my number 2, I got Sing 2. I didn't expect to like this one as much as I did, and the music sequences are really good. And on my number 1, I got the first Despicable Me movie. It still holds as the best Illumination movie. With nice character moments, I like Gru, but it sucks that they stopped trying after this one. So, there you have it. Now, is Illumination really as bad as everyone else makes it out to be? Well, to me, not really. Even though I did criticize the majority of their filmography like everyone else has, most of their movies are inoffensive, and they do make movies that manages to appeal for a wide range of audiences, and they do know how to do it well. Most of it is due to how they market their movies, and yeah, it's definitely working for them. But I wouldn't really call this the worst animation studio. To me, at the end of the day, this studio just wants to make animated movies to entertain a lot of people, and I think that's what they do best. And honestly, I don't really have a problem with that. And I honestly didn't really have a bad time watching most of their movies. So yeah, that's about where we're at for this studio. And I wonder what other movies that they have planned for the future. I know the second Mario movie is most likely the next one, which I'm excited for. But I wonder what other movies that they're gonna make next. Oh. Why am I not surprised?